is Straight to the Source, your destination for food, views and big ideas. Brought to you by two of the best in the business, Tonya Barr and Lucy Allon. Join them to discover some of Australia's most dynamic food, hospitality and agribusiness leaders.
Hello and welcome to Food, Views and Big Ideas. I'm Tonya Barr.
And I'm Lucy Allen, and this is the podcast from us here at Straight to the Source.
In this podcast, we will be introducing you to the people who are driving our food and hospitality industry forward. Whether it be on the land, in the water, in the kitchen, or from the boardroom.
Each of our guests are playing a significant role in the evolution of Australia's food identity and culture, and we want you to know who they are, their views and their big ideas.
Hi, I'm Tonya Barr, and I'm very excited for this episode of the Straight to the Source podcast with restaurateur and executive chef Colin Barker. He shares his transformative moments in his diverse career, from the days of old school ugly kitchen environments to now, growing food for his rustic and refined destination restaurant and farm nestled in the beautiful Megalong Valley. So whether you're just starting out or you've been in hospitality for many years, there's something for everyone to learn from listening to his story. Hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. I'm in the studio today with Colin Barker. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. Let's just say, you've been in the industry how long?
Too long.
Obviously not too long, because you've just set off on a new venture. So we'll loop back to that
I think
one.
that's just a case of I don't know how to do anything else. Full-time, 23 years, and then, the usual lead up as a kitchen hand and teenage years.
Worked your way
5.
up through the ranks?
Yeah. So still find myself on the pot wash, so I don't know how far I've advanced, but...
Are you a Sydney boy?
I grew up rural Sydney. I was out in the Hawkesbury as a kid, a little town called Moralia. Felt very country, not so much nowadays with the urban sprawl. Still Sydney-based with the family, but I actually spend more time up in the Megalong. So 5 days a week in the valley and Monday, Tuesdays back in Sydney.
Well, let's talk about your career. If you started off in the washroom doing pots and pans, yep. So where did you go? At what age was that? And what actually drove you to get that job?
I always wanted to be a chef from the earliest age. 6, 7, 8. It was just sort of fascinated with food. Always pretty good on the tooth. And when the opportunity came up to do work experience in high school, so what's that, sort of year 10, so 14, 15, the best place in the area was a local golf resort, which was Riverside Oaks. And got offered some casual kitchen hand work after that, and that's actually where I met my first chef ever, John Slaughter. And that would have been 97-ish, and we still talk to each other 2 to 3 times a week every week, so we're still putting up with each other.
Would you say you guys are mentors to each other, or just best mates, or
Bit of both?
Yeah,
bit of both. So John was a really big driving force, and even still to this day in my career. So if I'm a bit out of line, he'll give me a clip and bring me back in. And he obviously saw something in me as a young kid, and he actually came to me early on with a copy of Liam Tomlin's Banc book, and said, "Mate," he goes, "when you're done here, I want you to try your hand at something like this." And that was actually my first job in Sydney with Banc. So very rushed. Jumped on the phone pretty much straight away, and then had to go to him and say, "Oh, that book you gave me, I've got to leave in 9 days. Cheers, chef." So, I got offered the job in Sydney, and the rest is history.
So when you guys talk about that today, was it like a double-edged sword for him?
No, not at all. Not at all. He really wanted to see me out of there. He wanted to see me sort of spread my wings and, see what Sydney had to offer, and then ultimately what I could do internationally. So that led me to London as well.
So your experience at Banc, how long were you there?
18 months. I was one of the last guys out the door when it all finished up. So, it was unbelievable. Like, I'd come from a golf resort in the Hawkesbury, sort of a bit of a naive country boy, and just it was a pressure cooker of a kitchen. Obviously Liam had quite a reputation, and it was something else.
And that was the old school kind of...
Old school ugly, yeah. Huge hours, scream from sun up to sundown. I reckon I worked with 40 plus chefs in that time. Just the turnover was massive. even to the point where you'd have people come to do trials, and they'd say they were going outside for a cigarette break, and they'd leave an entire roll of Japanese knives behind just because they didn't want to come back in the door.
Just run off.
So, but yeah, look, it was ruthless times, and I'm sort of glad that the industry is not like that anymore, but I'm also really glad that I got to experience it.
When you think about chefs today, when they come in your kitchen, are you that sort of chef? I mean, how have you changed your style in the kitchen?
No, not at all. I think I say this to my boys and girls all the time, one of the greatest lessons that I've had over the years is when you work for someone, you can learn what to do, but you can also learn what not to do. And I have worked for some amazing people over the years, but then I've also worked with some people where I've seen elements of the industry, and I thought, you know what, when I've got my own chance, I'm not going to do that. I'm one of those guys now that there's not a job on the farm or in the restaurant that I'd ask my staff to do that if I wouldn't do it myself. So it's kind of a lead by example arrangement.
What exactly inspires you, and is it different from that young boy that you were working at Banc and then you went to London? Like, is it the same fire in your belly, or is it evolving and changing, or do you keep going back to the same inspiration?
Yeah, I suppose when you're young and you want to chase the latest trends and the flash and things like that, and I sort of landed in London and took a job at the Ledbury with Brett on the tail end of the molecular gastronomy scene. And we dined out in a lot of places like the Fat Duck and Zake and things like that. The food was super manipulated, and whilst they were amazing dining experiences, they didn't really resonate with me as best meals. And one of the things that I loved about working with Brett at the Ledbury, which was 2-star at the time, was there was always an honesty about his food, and he was always about provenance and keeping it as local as possible. And sort of being a rural boy that, we did home kill lambs and we did home kill chickens, and Mum grew bits and pieces, that sort of struck a chord with me. And my dream was to always do something along the lines of what I'm doing right now. I don't know that I sort of envisaged it being on the scale that it is, but I'm really inspired by produce. I've never been one of those guys that can look at an email or a supplier list in the morning. I've actually got to physically trip over something. Mm-hmm. So for me now, to walk around the farm and to see the crops coming on, we've got 6 acres of organic vegetable production, and have the opportunity to use things in different ages and stages, letting things bolt and using the core, or picking things up right in their infancy so they're real delicate and sweet. That's still my inspiration, and just about the simple things done well, honest flavours.
Well, you have quite a legacy as being the seafood chef.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Well, the seafood thing came about for me because I've always been, long before I was a chef, I was a recreational fisherman and always had a love of seafood. Still to this day, I do a lot of fishing around Sydney, and even up in the mountains now. We've got access to some really cool trout streams and some redfin and things like that. So that came about. I came back to Sydney, and I actually wasn't going to jump back into the kitchen straight away. I was actually labouring for my dad as a plumber's labourer, and just having a bit of time because London was full on. And a mate of mine, I went and caught up with him for a beer in Sydney, and then another mate turned up who happened to be the bar manager at the Boathouse. Mate, you should see the fish, you'd love it, we need a sous chef. Same sort of thing, 3 days later, back in town. So my time at the Boathouse, was amazing. Obviously, circumstances with the world at the time and all that cut that short, but having said cut short, that was 13 years of my life. Mm-hmm. And Tony Pappas was an amazing man to work with and for. I still get to the fish markets on the weekly to pick up our stuff for Megalong, mm-hmm. but we're not using any saltwater product up there. We're only using sort of freshwater or freshwater aquaculture products. Just, I think, being so far removed from the sea, it'd look a little bit out of place. Mm-hmm. But yeah, seafood's still a really big part of my life. I caught an amazing terraglan just off Sydney the other day, and that's sustained the family for a couple of weeks, and the local kingfish are turning up soon, and yeah.
It's one of the highlights of my career was the 4 days you and I spent in the Eyre Peninsula in South Australia.
That was an awesome time.
That was about, 15 years ago now or something? Yep.
I still remember one of the best meals I've ever had, and, it was so basic. Do you remember down in Smoky Bay we had the The guys put on the feed in the camp ovens, cooked over mallee root.
Yes.
Even down to like bread baked, open fire, and that was pretty special.
And did we have the smoked oysters then? Did
Yes.
they have the big jar of the smoked oysters then? Yeah.
Yep.
I've got to say, if you can go on a bus for 4 days, it was yourself, Sean Conley, and myself in terms of chefs. Everyone else were wholesalers.
Yes.
And the wheeling and dealing and everything, negotiations going on. I'm still a little scarred from that, actually.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. Who was the other? Adam Liston.
Oh, sorry.
Ads
Adam
was there as well.
Yeah.
He's gone on to do some really cool things.
He sure has.
Yeah.
Well, we're very lucky in this country with the amount of the quality of seafood that we have.
I was spoiled. Yeah.
Let's talk about Lot 101. So, I know when Boathouse, it's still closed down, right?
Yeah. Sitting exactly the way we left it. I went and had a squiz the other week. It's pretty sad, actually. It's kind of a bit of rack and ruin. But yeah, I actually set a few booby traps when I left the building so I could see if anyone had been in or out. And the booby traps are still in place, so I'm assuming no one's been through the kitchen door in best part of 5 years.
Be careful. Our listeners are going, where's the Boathouse?
Yeah.
Find it.
Dodge the avalanche of garbage bins.
That's it. Well, Lot 101, you talk about your roots of living in the outskirts of Sydney and being a country boy.
Yep.
Now, you're kind of having the best of both worlds, aren't you? You're still living in Sydney, but yet you have this new venture.
Yes, yeah. So we've got a bit of both, and it's kind of funny how it all came about. So my business partners, so it's my brother-in-law's brother and his wife. They were sort of regular customers at the Boathouse, and they've been at me for years, should do something. And it just so happened that after the Boathouse closed, I got picked up by a hotel group doing consulting. And my wife's 40th birthday was meant to fall during the first lot of lockdowns, and she'd been planning it for, I think 7 years in advance. So she was devastated when restrictions cut it off. And basically, James, my business partner, he rang and said, 1,000 acres, Megalong Valley, 10 cabins, they're pretty tired, but party's back on. So we did a big outdoor cook-up, and we just we kept it to 10 families, and 1,000 acres, you don't have to worry about social distancing too much. So I did a big open fire event, a couple of big porchettas and camp ovens of veg and things like that. And partway through lunch, he said, come and have a look at this old building. And I'd probably had just enough booze to, say yes. But yeah, we walked into this old farmhouse and he said, what do you think? And it was born from there. So I started putting a business plan together. So I designed for the restaurant and what facilities we'd have to build. And then it just snowballed from there. And he said, I'm not in hospitality and I don't have time for this. You're a business partner and you're on full time. So when your contract finishes down there, get on it. And 3 years in the build, and we've now been open for 6 months.
And what is your vision? How far do you want to take it?
Yeah, so the 10 cabins that are existing behind the restaurant, they're in council at the moment to be redeveloped. And we've also picked up a neighbouring property that's got literally across the road from us, that's got another 200 acres. That's the Werryberry holiday cabins. So they're operational as we speak. And then we also picked up, there's an old cafe in the valley. It's been around since 1956. It's the Tea Rooms. The valley, once upon a time in the early 1900s, used to be full of old tea rooms. This is the last one still standing.
What's the definition of a tea room?
So basically, it was where people, for instance, staying up at the Mark Foy's hotel, the Hydro Majestic, they'd do a tour down and they'd have high tea, essentially. So scones, Devonshire tea, and there was 7 of them dotted throughout the valley, and we're still in operation. So we picked that up as a business as well, just because we've got nothing else to do. And then on top of it, we've got the farm, the Lot 101 farm. We're raising our own beef. Our own lambs, running chooks for eggs, and vegetable production. We're actually wholesaling some of the veg at the moment, and we might even go that way with some of the cattle production too.
Can you walk me through what to expect from a F&B point of view?
Righto. Probably the best way to go through it is give you a bit of a look into what we had last week. So we start off with a series of snacks. And some of that is, it's been labelled as mundane, but We'll do maybe 3-5 little tiny veg from the farm, and what we're trying to do with that is, and they're just served raw or with some local olive oil, and that's to showcase the vibrancy of flavour when you don't have the cold transport chain, and the intensity of flavour that comes with things being harvested literally only a few hours before service. Then what did we have? We had some buckwheat pancakes with some house-made creme fraiche and some bresaola that we cured from some of our Speckle Park cattle. We had a little horseradish and cauliflower mousse with some Yarra Valley caviar and a ponzu that we made with some citrus from one of our local guys. Then we moved into, it might end up being a side business, but we've been making our own sourdough for a while now and mucking around with recipes. And it was actually a starter that I made in one of the sheds up there, just harvesting natural yeast over time, but it's been really, really, really well received. We're selling the bread out of the cafe up there as well. So we do a bread course, and that was just served with some wood oven leeks and some local goat's curd. So we've got Janai goat's curd with the goat dairy out at Lidsdale. Murray cod, grilled over charcoal with some spigarello, some broad beans, and then a bone broth, like a consommé that we've just made out of the cod frame. So trying to do the whole zero waste thing and being as thoughtful as we can. And then what was our main course? We just got 2 beef cattle back from the abattoir for a total of 910 kilos. So we've been very busy on the butcher. We've got a beautiful dry aging facility, and we've hung some of that beef for in excess of 140 days, and it's been pretty amazing. So we had some of our beef on the other day. It's actually a Wagyu that we lot fed on the farm for a little while, which lot feeding's not really what we want to do, but these cattle were sort of gifted to us, and we thought, well, we won't look, gift horse in the mouth, we'll use it. So we've been fattening those guys up for a while, and that was just with some young garlic, some garlic scapes, because the garlic season's starting to get on now. Little pre-dessert, goat's milk with some pine cone syrup that we made from some local pine trees. Then we had a shoe bun.
How do you make pine cone syrup?
This came about, we went down to help one of the local guys, John, with netting his orchard, because the birds give everything a flogging. That's another thing that you got to deal with primary production is pests. So we were down there netting the orchard, and I sort of noticed this big pine next to his house, and all the pine cones were really, really young and sappy. So we were lucky enough, our assistant restaurant manager, Will, is a very talented rock climber. So I said, hey, Will, up the tree. And he came back with a bucket of these green pine cones, and then over 2 or 3 days, basically, we did basic sugar syrup and a heap, probably about 25 kilos of pine cones. You bring it up to boil once in water alone, and you let it set, and basically it pushes all the resins out, and you discard all that, and then you take the blanched cones, put them in with a sugar syrup, just a 1-to-1, bring it up to the boil, simmer it for a minute, turn it off. And that was just let it cool completely, process. 3 days later, you end up with this dark, really sticky syrup. Pine cones go soft, and then we jar it up and heat seal it. But it's amazing. It smells like Christmas, but it's got a flavour of quince and citrus, which is really unexpected. And it's a flavour-rich little thing that, like, if I gave it to you now, you wouldn't call it for pine. Mm-hmm. So, and then, we've also, other local suppliers, we've got the Little Coffee Co. Darren's doing a great job out there, and he's just teamed up with the guys from Karoo Distillery. So another great mountain story. Their Orsa has just taken out the best liqueur for their coffee liqueur. So even in the restaurant now, we've got an espresso martini, which is 100% mountains. So we've got Karoo's coffee liqueur, we've got Darren's coffee beans, we've got vodka from the Blue Mountains Gin Company, and yes, we're trying to, like I said, if we can't do it on the farm, we want to get it as local as possible, and we're starting to get all these amazing producers come out of the woodwork with some really great products, and we're happy to support them.
You're really telling that Providence story.
Absolutely. And, like everyone... these are small businesses and things like that. So, it's advantageous to all of us if we champion each other.
Well, how many seats in the restaurant?
So 50 seats. It's a tasting menu experience. So it could be anywhere between 5, 7, 9, depending on how we're feeling on the day. Mm-hmm. The whole idea is that once you've got your table, it's yours for the day. So a dining experience is long. Like your average lunch is going for about 4.5 hours, and we encourage people to go outside and see the gardens, to look at the beehives, go through the berry blocks, the orchard, to really immerse themselves in the food production area. So, yeah, it's very, very homely. It's an old homestead, like I said, that we've converted. We even went to the point where all the timber for the tables was milled on the property with some mature trees that we had to cut down to redirect some power lines underground. It's very casual. I think it's quite refined, but we just want people to come and really disconnect.
And settle in for the day,
Absolutely.
For the experience.
Yep.
And understand where those ingredients are coming from.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the term paddock to plate gets thrown around a lot, but what we want people to do is sort of 90% of what people are dining on in the restaurant is actually grown and sourced on our farm. If it's not from our farm, we've got neighbouring, people that raise different bits and pieces. James Leslie does awesome heritage pigs for us in the Canimbla, and then we've got access to a few private orchards down the road that the community's been really welcoming. We've constantly got people dropping off baskets of kumquats or plums or, quinces, or saying, oh, look, I've got this feral apple tree down the back. So we'll go and net that for next season. And, yeah, it's a good news story.
So when you wake up in the morning and you look at what's available from a produce point of view, gone are the days where you're looking at your list from your suppliers and, having to get them in at midnight and that sort of thing. Now you're looking at nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's literally what's on hand, and it's really inspiring. So it keeps it very interesting for the staff. I think it took a while for a lot of them to get used to how fluid everything was, because they'd come from places where things came in pre-portioned. Everything was very safe. Menus stayed on for 6-9 months at a time. So it's ever changing, but it's really good fun.
Well, let's talk about staff. I imagine you would need to look for staff that are like-minded. Obviously, if they're going to come work on the property at Lot 101, they're going to need to have the same ethos and value system.
Yep.
And then I would imagine you would be nurturing and mentoring them.
The greatest successes that I've ever had with staff wherever, and Boathouse was a good example for 13 years, is actually bringing people up through the system. So I've been really, really fortunate with Lot 101 and Megalong that I've had, 3 of my Boathouse staff have actually relocated to the mountains to be a part of it. So Vincent Wigman, my restaurant manager, he was with us for the last 12, 18 months at Boathouse, and we had a great working relationship. So I managed to get him to come on board, and then my sous chef up there, Aurelio Cantala, he was with me for 3 years at Boathouse, and now a couple of years in the lead up to Megalong. And then we've just had one of my young apprentices actually gave me a call, Patrick. He's come on deck. So it's amazing to have these guys come on, because they give me a confidence that, we don't have to establish sort of routines and things like that. We all work very, very well together. And on top of that, we've had some amazing mountains talent jump on board as well, not only at the restaurant but in the cafe and the farm. So it's you're
building a community.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's more than sort of we actually get like the chefs involved in the production of the food, and they might go out and harvest some of their own things, or we might help with weeding or seedling production or something like that. So there's a greater understanding of where their produce is coming from. So it's a real learning experience.
And where are they living?
We've got some staff facilities down there at the moment. We're actually in the process of, we're going to put a little staff village together. So some of the guys will live permanently. Like I said, we've got 1,100 acres, so we've got plenty of places to hide people. And then we're going to set up like a shearing shed, a bunkhouse type arrangement where, say the guys work a Saturday night and they're back for Sunday lunch. So instead of driving out of the valley, they can go back, they can have a shower, they can do their laundry, they can chill, get a longer rest instead of the 2 hours on the road. So we're just trying to do it. But apart from that, we've got a few guys, the Mount Vic, which is just down the way, Katoomba, Blackheath. So, yeah, locals.
Well, how do you relax? You got a lot going on.
How do I relax? Oh, look, my hobbies are still my hobbies. I love to fish and I love to hunt. So we're very, very lucky up there that a lot of the locals, there's some sort of big farms down there, 2,000, 2,500 acres. We've been really welcomed into the community, and people let us use their blocks as an extension of our farm. So in the afternoons, say on a prep day, might knock off and go for trout fish down the river, or, only went out with the boys the other day, and we managed to get a couple of wild goats, which we then used for staff meal for a couple of days. Even just taking the mountain bike up there, there's plenty of trails, there's beautiful bushwalks. Even on the block, I've got a couple of spots where people don't know that I like to go and hide, and I'd like to keep it that way. That's my peaceful time.
Your little secret hideaway.
Cup of tea and go for a walk.
Nice. Well, if you think back to your younger self when you were back at the golf resort,
Yep.
what advice would you give?
I wouldn't have changed anything with the golf resort. I think when I came to Sydney and these kitchens were these, pressure vessels, you tend to get caught up in it, and you get a fair amount of ego creep in, and I suppose all the yelling and argy-bargy sort of rubs off on you, and you pick up elements of that along the way. And then kids come along and they knock the edge off you, they soften you right up. Look, I wouldn't change a great deal. Advice-wise to any young chef out there now is just I always say to people, it's not a career, it's an illness. And I still love a really busy service. I love
that adrenaline
the
rush.
hours. I love the buzz.
Yeah.
But it's hard work. And like anything, you reap what you sow kind of thing. And if you're willing to do the graft and you're willing to do the time, and it'll pay dividends down the track. So yeah, just, head down, bum up, and just do the dirty jobs.
Well, name someone in the industry that just really inspires you.
People that I've worked with, Brett Graham in London's probably one of the greatest inspirations. I've never met a food mind like him, just restless mind. Couldn't do anything else but think about food. I'm pretty inspired nowadays looking at some of the guys that I've worked with in the past, what they've gone on to do. Food-wise, inspiration, just picked up a copy of Matt Lindsay's book, Esther. Esther's one of my favourite joints to eat. I think, they're very thoughtful with what they create. Inspiration's everywhere.
Yeah. If you could only eat one dish for the rest of your life, Colin, what would it be?
Oh, now you put me on the spot. Look, I always said that my death row meal was, I love just a good roast chook. Mm-hmm. So a good bird, brined, a couple of days to dry up in the fridge. And it always used to be with boiled cavolo nero and bread sauce. That was that's my comfort food. I'd probably say that. Anything pork related, give me pork. Or maybe just a simple, something, say seafood-wise, if I went and got some kingfish or bonito off the rocks at home, just a simple barbecue, simple salad.
Not snapper pie.
You know how I get so many people asking about the snapper pie nowadays, to the point where I was actually, each Christmas, there was a company that used to have their Christmas party at the Boathouse. And when they couldn't get their fix, they used to hire a demo kitchen, and I'd go in, I'd teach all their staff, and we'd cook snapper pie together, and then we'd have lunch. So I still knock out a few there's some regulars from the Boathouse that'll ring me a couple of times a year, and then one of our main seafood suppliers, Frankie, he hits me up every now and again. So the pie is not completely gone from my life. In the whole 13 years, I never ate one in its entirety. And
For what reason? Is it because it didn't appeal to you?
It's too much of a good thing.
Yeah?
It ruined me for mashed potato for the rest of my life.
Yep.
Because the amount of mash that we were making on the daily, and every service the boys would come up to you with another heaped tablespoon of mash and say, try this, try this. So mashed potatoes has been off the menu for a while, and the smell of baking puff pastry kind of ruined the local bakery for a bit. But I'm back now. I could probably sit and eat a pie, but what an amazing dish. And to still all these years, there's a demand for it. I suppose it's probably one of the most iconic signature dishes and it was very clever. It was a clever dish. Once you're on top of the prep, I used to call it a chef de partie wrapped in puff pastry because it did all the work for you. But I only went the last time I did snapper pies for somebody, the cost of snapper now has trebled since we last bought it. And I would hate to have the doors of the Boathouse open now to think what it would cost to put a snapper pie together.
Well, I'm so thrilled that we're able to do this podcast today. And I mean, Straight to the Source, the podcast is very much about big ideas and viewpoints and food views and big ideas. And you definitely, your big idea in actually venturing into Lot 101 and doing it your way and taking all of your lessons throughout your career and now having the opportunity to kind of spread your wings and live off the land and cook off the land.
It's pretty inspiring, and I'm very lucky to have the support of the business partners that I do, and for us all together, we want to show that you can raise cattle, produce vegetables, produce fruit, all the bits and pieces, and you can have a positive impact on the land. The farm, when we picked it up, was like a lot of properties out there, just mismanaged, overgrazed, compacted, it was a junk heap essentially when we got it. And slowly, like 3 growing seasons now, and you see the health in the soils, and you see how the pastures are bounced back with the rotational grazing rather than just letting animals roam willy-nilly, do what they want. All the projects that we've got going on with the bushland and the water and things like that. It's a good news story, and we just want to show people that you can actually produce great food and have a positive positive outcome on the land.
So for our listeners, if they want to book, do you release dates, 2 or 3 months in advance?
3 months in advance.
Okay.
Yep. The cafe's 7 days a week, and the accommodations at the moment are 7 days a week. The restaurant is open Thursdays through Sundays, so Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday lunch and dinner, and then a long lunch on Sunday. I think for me, Sunday's the quintessential service. It's long, it's boozy, and you can sit and take the escarpment in while you're doing it all.
Or book a cabin.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's phase 2 with the new cabins coming on. They're going to be done by the same construction crew that did the restaurant, so they're going to be high end. They're going to be beautiful fit and finish. They're nestled up in bushland, only 200 metres in a straight line from the restaurant. And then the whole idea is you actually walk through one of our gardens. We got 9 beds, probably an acre and a half in size. So the whole idea is that the customers, when they come down, the path's illuminated, they walk through the food production area and then into the restaurant. So just trying to get people to immerse and switch off.
And you're literally how far away?
Sydney door to door, 2 hours. Drive yourself up to Katoomba, go through to Blackheath, and then it's about a 15-minute run from Blackheath down the valley. And that's actually one of my favourite parts, and we actually get a lot of feedback from customers, is when you turn off and you drive down the valley. It's a bit of a goat track at the moment because we've had terrible rain and landslides and all that. I'm really selling it, aren't I? But you actually go through this rainforest on your way in, and it's literally a tunnel. And you got you got a creek running beside you, and you got these tree ferns growing over the top. And I actually call that area the disconnect, because that's where you cut the cord from civilization, and you come out the other end, and it opens up into beautiful paddocks and plains country, and our farm's tucked in on the right. So for me, the dining experience actually happens halfway up Megalong Road.
Oh, mate. Well, Colin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you. I just love it.
It's been a bit too long, so
yeah.
I'll have you up for lunch soon.
Yeah, I think I'll pick a Sunday.
Done.
So for the listeners, we will put in the show notes all the link to Lot 101 and Colin's your Instagram account and all of that. So if people want to hop on your website, they can have a look and book and all the best. I'm really excited for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We really hope you enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed the conversation. You'll find links to anything mentioned in today's chat in the show notes. We have some more extraordinary guests lined up, and we would love you to join us again. So please make sure you're following us on your favourite podcast app so you don't miss future episodes. We'd also love to hear any of your feedback, good or bad, or perhaps you've got a guest you'd love to hear from. You can let us know. And the best way to stay up to date with what we're doing, who we're talking to, and where you'll find us around the country is to become part of the Straight to the Source community at straighttothesource.com.au/community. Until next time.